I returned home just one day earlier than I should have. I wanted to make a pleasant surprise. But when I entered the apartment, I didn't even suspect that in 5 minutes I would hear a phrase that would destroy everything I knew about my family. Dad, that man came to see Mom again. Friends, before we continue, write in the comments what city you are from and how old you are. I always wonder who listens to such stories, and don't forget to subscribe. There will be many more such life stories ahead. I stood in the hallway, suitcase in hand, and felt strangely alien in my own home. Returning a day earlier was a spontaneous decision. The business trip ended faster. The partners signed the documents without unnecessary bureaucracy, and I decided, why not arrange a surprise? I imagined how my wife would turn around in surprise, how my son would rush to me with hugs. But everything turned out quite differently. Dad. There was a joyful shout from the living room, and a second later, small, fast feet thumped on the floor. My 6-year-old son, Danya, flew into the hallway, hugged my leg, and looked at me as if I had returned from the war and not from a day trip. Dad, you're early. And Mom said. He suddenly stopped talking. His eyes twitched toward the kitchen. What did Mom say? I smiled, sitting down next to him. Nothing. He lowered his gaze. It's just... that man came again. I froze. What man? He chewed his lip, a sign that he was nervous. Well, that one. Who comes to Mom when you're not there? I felt like everything was getting cold inside. It was too sudden, too sharp, and too direct. Danya, I took him by the shoulders. Wait, what do you mean? Before he could answer, his wife's voice rang out in the kitchen. Have you come yet? She appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a towel. There's a neat, strained smile on his face. He returned early. Why didn't you warn me? I looked at her and tried to figure out, who are you now? My wife? Or a man who has something to hide? I wanted to surprise you, I said calmly. Danya told me an interesting thing. Her eyes barely twitched towards her son, quickly, but I managed to notice. Which one? His voice was even, but too strained. I decided not to speak right away. I wanted to see how she would behave next. We'll discuss it later, I replied and went into the living room, but his son's words had already spread in his head like cracks on glass. The house looked perfect. Not just tidy, but perfect. It was too clean, as if someone was in a hurry to hide their tracks. No other people's stuff, no scent of men's perfume, no signals. But it felt like someone who shouldn't be here had recently entered the apartment. I put down my suitcase and walked through the rooms as if I were just looking around, but in fact I was looking for something that would give an answer. Are you hungry? My wife followed me. I've made dinner. Yes, now. I wasn't looking at her. I've been studying. The bed in our bedroom was perfectly made. It was as if she hadn't been touched in a long time. But I knew for sure that my wife never keeps the bed so level. She always leaves the pillow slightly shifted and the blanket half on the chair. Strange. It's very strange. What are you looking for? What is it? She asked. Nothing, I said and smiled. I just missed you. She was embarrassed and turned away. I noticed how she exhaled, as if relieved. But why? The evening passed quietly, suspiciously quiet. Danya was playing with a construction kit, occasionally casting anxious glances at his mother, as if he was afraid to say something unnecessary. At first, I thought he was just tired or acting up. But a child doesn't know how to pretend. He knows how to be afraid. Who scared him so much that he's afraid to even speak? I was watching. Every gesture of his wife, every word, every move. And I could see that she was nervous. She checks her phone too often, flips the screen down too fast when I pass by. Too often he goes for a minute into the bedroom. I didn't make any comments. He didn't ask any questions. I was just waiting. At night, when my son was already asleep and my wife was washing the dishes, I quietly went up to Dana and sat on the edge of his bed. Son, I whispered, can you tell me about that man? He opened his eyes immediately. It's like he's been waiting for me to ask all this time. But Mom doesn't like it when I talk about him. The kid clenched his fingers into fists. She says it's a secret. Secret. That word sounded like a sentence. You can trust me, Dan. I'm your dad. I won't tell anyone. He took a deep breath. The voice was trembling. He came when you weren't there. He was knocking on the door. Mom was opening it. They were talking quietly, very quietly. I've only heard one thing. What? He looked at the door again, as if he was afraid it would appear. He said, "You should have told him the truth." And Mom said, "Not now. He's going to ruin everything." I felt the ground give out from under my feet. The truth? What's the truth? What does he look like? I asked. Danya shrugged his shoulders. I don't know. Mom wouldn't let me leave the room. But once I looked out, he swallowed. It's big and angry. I'm scared, Dad. I hugged him, feeling everything boiling inside. Anger, fear, suspicion. No one's going to hurt you anymore, I whispered. I'll find out everything. And I promised it not only to him but also to myself. When I returned to the bedroom, my wife was already lying under the covers and pretending to read, but his hands were shaking, and the book was upside down. Rough day? What is it? She asked without looking up. Very much, I replied and lay down next to him. We both knew there was a wall between us, but she had no idea that I now had a reason to break this wall. We'll talk tomorrow, I said. About what? Her voice cracked. I turned to her and looked straight into her eyes. About that man. Her face paled. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I only realized one thing. Someone has come to my family who is not afraid to enter the house when I am not there. Someone the wife is hiding, and someone from whom even a small child is afraid. But that wasn't the scariest part. The scariest thing is that I was more and more doubtful. Do I even know my wife? I hardly slept a wink last night. I was lying on my back, listening to my wife breathing evenly next to me. Too evenly, too correctly. The breathing of a man who pretends to be asleep, and my son's words were endlessly spinning in my head. He said she should have told you the truth. I'm scared, Dad. These phrases drilled into my brain as the sky slowly brightened outside the window. When my wife finally got up and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, I quietly followed her out. Danya was still asleep. The house was quiet and seemed peaceful. But the air was thick, the kind that presses on your chest. She was standing at the stove cutting bread. The blade was shaking in my hands barely noticeably, but I saw it. She was nervous. You're early, she said, without even turning around. I can't sleep, I replied. The silence stretched between us like a thin thread. It was worth a little pull, and it would break. You said that you want to talk, she said softly. Yes. I came closer, and I want to start now. She put down the knife as if she was afraid of cutting herself. Danka got something wrong, she said quickly, too fast. He's a kid, you know. He has a fantasy. He talked about the same thing several times, I interrupted. About that man, too. Finally, she turned around. Her face is calm, but her eyes are not. What man? What is it? She asked. The one who came again. The one you opened the door to. About the one I told. Not now. He's going to ruin everything. She froze for a second. I saw her throat twitch. This, she exhaled, is all a misunderstanding. Then explain, I said, without raising my voice. She looked away. Then she sat down on a stool and covered her face with her hands. I don't know how to begin. Start with the truth, I said harshly. She looked up, and for the first time, I saw fear in them, not guilt, real, deep. Okay, she whispered, but you have to promise me that you'll listen to the end. I promise, she sighed. It's not a lover, she said, and for some reason it sounded like she was trying to calm herself down, not me. Then who is it? She was trembling, and I began to realize that everything that was happening was much deeper and darker than I had thought. She started the story from afar, something that, as it turned out, I never knew about. When they called you and said you needed to go on a business trip urgently, she began. Actually, you shouldn't have left. What? I frowned. Our main partner called me. He said the deal wouldn't happen without me. It was a lie, she whispered. It was a setup. By whom? She gritted her teeth. That man. I felt a chill go through my body. Explain it normally, I said, holding on with the last of my strength so as not to snap. She inhaled and spoke. One evening, when you weren't there, the doorbell rang. I thought it was the courier or the neighbors, but when I opened it, he was standing there, and he said he knows everything about us, about Danka, about you, about our finances, about everything. I tried to make sense of it, but everything was boiling inside. Why would he do all this? It was as if she was gathering her courage to say the following. He said that I have to fulfill one request, otherwise it will be worse for all of us. What request? She hesitated. He said he wanted to talk to you, but you have to be vulnerable, so that he could set the conditions. That's why he arranged for you to be out. For what? She shook her head. I do not know. I don't understand anything. He said that if I told anyone, he would come back, and this time, he won't be alone. I took a step back. Everything was mixed up in my head. My partner's lies, strange phone calls, the child's fear, the man in the house. Are you saying that you're being blackmailed? I asked gradually. She nodded nervously. He's been here 4 times already. Every time you weren't there, he threatened. He said that you have to find out the truth and that she would break everything. What kind of truth? I clenched my fingers until my knuckles turned white. What is it? She closed her eyes as if she was in pain. I do not know, she whispered. He said he'd only tell you that. Personally. I stopped talking. It was no longer a story of betrayal. It wasn't even a family drama anymore. It was becoming something else, something that smelled of menace, something that scared even his wife to the point of trembling. But I still had my doubts. Why didn't you tell me? I asked quietly. Because She looked away. He came more than once. And the second time, he said that if I told you ahead of time, he would take Danya away. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Now everything was falling into place. His son's fear, his wife's nervousness, a secrecy, constant phone checks, anxiety in his eyes. You should have told me, I snapped. I was afraid, she almost screamed. You don't understand who this man is. I saw his eyes. He's dangerous. A heavy silence hung over the table. I ran my hand over my face. Okay, I said finally. What did he want? What exactly did he ask for? His wife lowered her voice to a whisper. He said that he'll be back soon. And what about next time? He wants to talk to you, personally. When? I asked. She turned pale. Today. Those few seconds stretched out like an eternity. He said he was coming at lunch today, she continued, and that I have to pretend that everything is fine, so that you don't suspect anything, so that he could safely enter the house. I only realized one thing. We're caught up in the game, dangerous, and I have no idea what his rules are. But I knew one thing for sure. When will this man come? I'll be waiting for him, and he won't leave without revealing the truth. I sat in the living room and listened to the clock ticking. The sound was nerve-wracking, as if someone was deliberately stretching out the seconds, turning them into agony. My wife walked around the kitchen, trying to occupy herself with something, sorting through cabinets, rearranging mugs, wiping the already clean table. My hands were shaking. She stole a glance at me, and each time she quickly turned away. Danya was playing in the room, but occasionally he looked out into the corridor, as if he sensed that something was going on. Children always feel it. Sometimes it's much better than adults. I sat, staring at the door. Dinner was approaching, and somewhere inside me, a mixture of anger and cold, precise calculation slowly grew. If this man comes, I want to know who he is, what he wants, and why he chose us. I wasn't afraid for myself. I was afraid for my son, and it was the fear for him that made me more dangerous. By 11:30, his wife's phone vibrated. She flinched as if she'd been electrocuted. I looked at her. Is that him? I asked. She nodded. In his hands, the phone was shaking like a leaf in the wind. Take it, I said calmly. I'm afraid, she whispered. Take it. I got up. You're not alone now. She swiped her finger across the screen and turned on the speakerphone. I'm listening, she said in a trembling voice. A man's calm, too confident breathing echoed through the room. I knew right away that he was smiling. His silence was somehow predatory. And then a voice. Is he at home? Calm, smooth. Sure. But there was danger in that certainty. It sent a chill down my spine. My wife looked at me. I nodded. She took a deep breath. Yes, at home. Great. The man spoke softly, almost kindly. Then I'll come back soon. We all have a lot to talk about. Click, the call is completed. She put the phone down as if she was afraid of getting burned. He's coming, she gasped. Let him come, I said. The remaining minutes dragged on endlessly. My wife walked around the house, restless. Danya sat down next to me, climbed with his feet on the sofa and leaned his shoulder against me. I patted his head. He didn't say anything, but I could feel how tense he was. His small body was like a string. Dad, he said softly, and if he comes, won't you leave? I'm not leaving, I replied. I'm with you. And Mom, he asked. Mom is with us too. He nodded, but the worry in his eyes did not disappear. Someone knocked on the door. He didn't ring the bell, but knocked, like a master, as if he had no doubt that we would open for him. The wife shuddered so much that her mug slipped out, fell to the floor, and broke. I got up. Go to your son's room, I told her, but just do it. She obeyed. Danya followed her. I closed the door behind them and turned to the hallway. The knock was repeated, calmly, unobtrusively, almost politely. I walked over. He inhaled, and he opened it. A man in his 40s stood in the doorway, tall, confident, with a clean, intelligent face. No external threat. He was wearing an expensive cashmere raincoat and neat gloves, the kind of guy no one would suspect of doing anything wrong. He smiled, perfect, like he was in a commercial picture. Good afternoon, he said. Good afternoon, I replied, without taking a step back. May I come in? You already came in when you started breaking up my family, I said flatly. He raised his eyebrows slightly, as if he was genuinely curious. So we're going to communicate in a tense tone? Well then, I was ready. He walked past me without even waiting for an invitation, as if he took it for granted. I closed the door and followed him. He went into the living room, looked around and sat down in an armchair, as if at home. Where is she? What is it? He asked at once. My wife? I asked. Yeah, he nodded. And the boy? In the other room. And that's where they'll stay. He chuckled. Do you think you can protect them? It's touching. I clenched my fists. Who are you? And what do you want from my family? He tilted his head a little to one side, like a man choosing where to start. Okay, he said. Give me your version. Did I come for her? For your son's sake? For the sake of money? Or maybe, am I her lover? He smiled broadly. Which version do you like better? I like the one where you go away and never come back, I said. He laughed softly. Oh, stubborn. Good. Then listen. He leaned forward and laced his fingers together. I came for the truth. What other truth? The truth, he repeated, that she's been hiding from you for years. My heart stung, but I remained calm. What are you talking about? He looked at the door to the nursery and said, About the baby. I froze. What's wrong with him? I asked slowly. He smiled even wider, but it was a cold smile. He's not yours. Those words hit harder than any fist. I wanted to say that he was lying, that this is another attempt to break us, another manipulation. But my son's words came back to me. Dad, I'm scared. He said that Mom should tell the truth. The wife, her fear, her silence. The man saw how he was covering me and continued calmly. You see, she's been hiding it for years, and I was afraid that one day everything would come out. I just accelerated the process. I squeezed out, Why? He shrugged his shoulders. Because I believe that every man has the right to know the truth. You're not. And then what? I asked dully. He stood up. Next, I want her to confess to you herself, so that you can hear it from her mouth, so that everything would collapse completely. Then, maybe, It will be easier for you to accept the inevitable." "What's inevitable?" He came closer. His face was a few centimeters from mine. "I'll come back for him." Then he turned around and walked out calmly, as if he had just announced the postponement of a business meeting. I stood there, not moving. The world around them seemed to dim. I didn't believe the strange man, but the words hurt me. I walked slowly to the room where my wife and son were. When I opened the door, my wife got up. I could tell by her face every word that man said wasn't a threat. It was the truth. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought it would never happen." And at that moment, everything inside me collapsed. I returned home the same evening when I received the photos from the private investigator. The pictures showed things that I thought were impossible this morning. My wife, Lena, and the same man, a stranger, who came to her while I was on a business trip. In the photo, they were holding hands, hugging, entering the apartment, leaving it late at night. In one picture, she was looking at him with eyes like she'd never looked at me before. I stood in front of our apartment door and felt like everything was boiling inside, but strangely, I was calm. Too many emotions have already passed in recent days. There was no strength left for hysteria, only the determination to understand the truth. I entered quietly, without slamming the door. The kitchen light was on in the apartment. I heard her voice on the phone. I came closer. "Yes, he's already arrived," she said softly. "No, he doesn't know anything. We'll decide everything tomorrow." Something broke in my chest. I stepped into the kitchen. She whirled around. His face paled. "Oh, are you back?" she squeezed out, quickly hiding the phone. "I have a question right away," I said calmly, although it seemed to me that my voice was trembling. "Who is this man who comes to you while I'm gone?" She froze. I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes, then a shadow of a decision. "It's not what you think," she began. "Lena," I interrupted, "I've seen the photos." She lowered her eyes. His fingers nervously tugged at the edge of his t-shirt. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll tell you." "Just let's sit down?" I didn't sit down. She exhaled and began to speak. "It's not a novel, at least, not the way it looks. His name is Andre. He's the father of my son." My breath caught in my throat. "What? What son?" "Ours," she said faintly, "or rather, mine. Before you." She lowered her head lower, as if she was afraid to look at me. "When we met," she continued, "I was already pregnant. But I didn't tell you. I was afraid you'd leave. You seemed like the perfect man, and I thought if I told the truth, I'd ruin everything. And then we started building a life so quickly that I just didn't find a moment to say it." "And him?" I asked dully. "Who is he? An ex? The husband?" "No, just a biological father. We broke up long before I met you. He didn't want a child then. He disappeared. And now, he suddenly turned up. He said he wanted to be a part of his son's life." I sat down. My legs stopped holding me up. "And you decided to hide everything from me?" I asked quietly. "I knew I had to tell you," she whispered. "But how? It was getting harder every week. And then he came and said he would fight for custody. I didn't want to lose you. I thought I'd figure it out on my own. That's why I hid it." I was silent, because I didn't know what to say. Her words sounded plausible. But all the same, everything inside was cramped with betrayal. "Lena," I looked up at her. "Do you understand that I would accept a child? That I would accept you? Do you realize that you have destroyed not just something, but everything? Everything we had?" She started crying. "I'm sorry," she said, choking on her tears. "I was afraid. I was stupid. But I've never cheated on you, I swear it. I was just trying to hold on to the life I'd built. I didn't want to lose you." I got up and walked around the room. Photo. Her words. "Our son is not mine, but the boy I loved with all my heart. And Andre is a man who suddenly decided to return." "Did he come here?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes, he wanted to see his son. I wouldn't let him in." Then he started threatening the courts. I asked him to leave, but he wouldn't listen. Is that why the son said, "That man came again"? Yes. I closed my eyes. Lena, I said after a pause, do you understand that I can't live in a family where they lie to me about such things? Not about everyday things, but about fundamental ones. She came closer. I'm ready to fix everything. I'm ready to tell you everything honestly, to give you access to any correspondence, to documents. Go to the lawyer together. I don't want him in our lives. I want to be with you. I looked into her eyes, and for the first time, I saw in them not secrets, not secrecy, but a sincere fear of losing. Where is he now? I asked. I don't know. He wrote that he would be back. I took out my phone. I'll call the police, and I will submit an application. He has no right to come without consent, let alone threaten. She nodded, wiping away her tears. We sat in the kitchen until late at night. She told me everything, without trying to justify herself. Just honestly. For the first time. The next morning, we went to a legal consultation. It turned out that her fears were half real, but the situation is much more controlled than she thought. His involvement in the child's life requires procedures, not pressure. When we got home, my son ran up to me and hugged my neck. "Dad, you've arrived." At that moment, I realized that he was my son, regardless of biology. And if Lena was telling the truth, if she really wanted to protect our little world, even though she did it wrong, maybe we have a chance. Later in the evening, we were sitting with her on the balcony. They were silent. They just breathed. "Thanks for staying," she said softly. "I didn't stay for you," I replied. "For both of us. And for him." She nodded. Sometimes families break up because of blows that no one expects. Sometimes they go back because someone has finally found the strength not to leave. But I understood one thing for sure. Any mystery, even the smallest one, will one day turn into a storm. And if you want to save your family, you need to tell the truth, even when she's scary, even when she can change everything.